CBS Sports, Nick Costos and Chris Towers. Chris, it is now time for the right combinations presented by State Farm. Two players on the same team that we like to come through this weekend for fantasy owners. Let's start off with the Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson, wide receiver Doug Baldwin.
I like Russell Wilson. Now that he's healthy, now that he's shed that knee brace, he's been playing outstanding. We saw last week, he actually caught a touchdown pass from Doug Baldwin. That was awesome. And you look at them against any matchup, they're great. Tampa Bay allowing the second most yards per attempt to quarterbacks this season. Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin, arguably the most efficient wide receiver quarterback pairing in the NFL. If Doug Baldwin gets 6-7 targets, he can still have 15 fantasy points. That's how good this duo is. The second one, another one with a great matchup. San Francisco is a terrible defense. So Ryan Tannehill and Devontae Parker.
Chris, I love this combination heading down the stretch of the season. Parker's really starting to emerge.
Look, we've seen the last 2 seasons since he's gotten in the NFL, he's had nagging hamstring injuries. But when he's been healthy, this guy's a really good wide receiver. Over his last 16 games, dating back to last season, he's right at 950 yards, 5 or 6 touchdowns. He's got big play potential, and San Francisco actually doesn't give up that many yards. They're about 14th in the NFL in passing yards, 2nd most touchdowns, 5th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Ryan Tannehill, you never feel that great about having to rely on Ryan Tannehill.
Or terrible.
But I think this week you've got a chance with 2 guys who you might have been able to pick up on the waiver wire a week ago.
Now, Chris, the difference between you and you're more measured. I, of course, am more excitable. So I want you to tell me if you think this is a hyperbolic statement.
Okay.
I think Devontae Parker is going to be a difference maker down the stretch and win owners fantasy championships. That's how high I think his upside is heading down the stretch.
He did it last season, 450 yards in his last 6 games. There's a reason he was the number 14 pick. There's a reason he was a big-time playmaker at Louisville. He's really talented.
Now, running back combinations presented by State Farm, the New York Giants in Cleveland this weekend.
Hey.
And, Chris, that means you feel pretty good about Rashad Jennings and Paul Perkins.
I mean, if you and I were the running backs against Cleveland, I feel like we could combine for 10 fantasy points.
Combine, yes, I agree.
But I would expect a lot more from this one. Rashad Jennings reestablishing himself over the last few weeks as the clear number 1 guy. He's got a great opportunity against this terrible Cleveland defense, allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to running backs. I think Rashad Jennings could be a top 12 guy this week, and Paul Perkins, maybe more like a number 3 running back, but 29 touches over the last 3 games since the bye week. He's got that big play potential. You watch him, it's easy to get excited about that.
I think he's better than Rashad Jennings, but Jennings, the veteran, Perkins, bad in pass protection, so Rashad Jennings getting the majority of the workload right now.
And then we move on to the New England Patriots. The problem is there might be 3 guys in here. You know, they're still working in Dion Lewis, James White there in the passing game. You know LeGarrette Blount's going to get his. If they get near the end zone, he's got a great opportunity to score. Dion Lewis versus James White, a little tough to figure out who's going to get that work. They've been splitting work pretty evenly, but you just watch these 2 guys. Dion Lewis is so much better, so much more electrifying, has that chance for a big play every time he touches the ball. If I had to start 2 guys in New England, those are the 2 guys I'd go with.
Those were the right combinations for week number 12, presented by State Farm.